Good evening. My name is Edward Sanshin Oberholtzer. I'm the resident priest and guiding teacher of the Joseph Priestley Zen Sangha in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. We're a part of Empty Moon Zen. We all, well, perhaps most of us, know the Four Noble Truths. Life is suffering. The suffering has a cause. The cause can be cured. The cure is the Eightfold Path. This is, after all, a Dharma talk, so I can make that occasional assumption. Let's set aside for the moment that passage in the Heart Sutra we just recited, the one that goes, no suffering, no cause, no cessation, no path. There's an important notion here, entangled in the doctrine of the two truths, the emptiness of even the Four Noble Truths, a notion that we will address, I promise you, in a future talk, though those two truths, in short, stand out in that same Heart Sutra, that form is emptiness, emptiness form. But this suffering, this very suffering that we find in the three marks of existence, together with impermanence and non-self, this suffering which we find in the world of form is real suffering, nonetheless. Find the sword that the executioner wields to be empty, and you are, no doubt, right. But there is blood on the floor, nonetheless. There is, despite the emptiness of that act, a bereft partner, nonetheless. There are wailing children, nonetheless. Little wonder that Buddhism, as the religion of suffering, is a trope so popular, so widespread that many of us, even those among us who are longtime practitioners, buy into it without looking into the subtler, more widespread aspects of that suffering. I recall the Soto priest, Jisho Warner, talking about moving west to Sebastopol, California, and attending a picnic with neighbors when a woman came up to her and berated her for claiming as a Buddhist priest that life was nothing but suffering. Not me. I'm not suffering, the woman proclaimed loudly and vociferously. Well, of course not. But just how content are you, one might ask? How untouched by dissatisfaction, of envy, of longing are you? The world is our witness that people do experience cruel and appalling tragedies, no matter how sheltered or not we ourselves might be. Wars rage on, famine and disease cover the land. Floods and fires devastate our world. Closer to home, the lives of friends, relatives, and sometimes we ourselves turn on a dime. The homeless wander our streets seeking food and shelter, even here in central Pennsylvania. And in this bucolic valley, children go to bed hungry each night. But dukkha, the word the Buddha used, is all too quickly simply translated as suffering rather than perhaps more accurately and broadly as dissatisfaction. As a friend pointed out the other day, dukkha, the Sanskrit term, comes from the word naming the misalignment of a cart's axle with the hole through which it turns, a kind of squeaky wheel, certainly a wheel that, if we might experience its effects, then we would experience less a pain and more a world out of kilter, as that Mennonite buggy down the street here. And we do have them here, as that Mennonite buggy might clatter down our roadway. We all know that dissatisfaction, that sense of the world being not quite right, even, no, especially that woman Jisho Warner encountered. Deny it though she might. Thoreau reminds us that the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. Yes, Perhaps it is overkill to talk of a hungry child as dissatisfied, but certainly they wish life were otherwise. We all live with that quiet thrum of an axle out of true, the sense that our lives, if not wildly off the rails, are nonetheless traveling down a road badly in need of resurfacing. Perhaps not devastating, but not that smooth ride we prefer. I live in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, not because I was drawn here. No, apple butter and quilting bees have their rustic charms, but not charm enough to lure me to Appalachia. We moved here because my wife was born and raised near here. As her mother declined into increasing frailty, we realized that caring for her from across the continent would not do, and so we sold our home in Oakland and moved back east as close as we could without encroaching upon either my mother-in-law or Karen's sisters. I know that deep down inside my wife has always harbored a nostalgia for her family home here in the Susquehanna Valley, a nostalgia, a pain that cuts both ways, both a desire to be here and the pain of actually returning to that which had, as she did, moved on. As Thomas Wolfe wrote, "You can't go home again." The Trojan War has left us with two monuments in world literature, the Iliad and the Odyssey, both sole surviving examples of what were probably many other epics spun out of that far-off ancient war. The Odyssey in particular is the last remaining example of the nostoi, the epics relating the homeward returning journeys of veterans of that war. Our word nostalgia comes from nostos, paired with pain, algia, a root we find in neuralgia and myalgia, the pain of returning, or more often, the pain of the desire to return, homesickness, and, frankly, being sick of home. And I, even as I deny any sense of home, still resonate with that poem of A.E. Housman's. That is the land of lost content, I see it lying plain, the happy highways where I went and cannot come again. This sense of nostalgia, the sense of the loss of something we think we possessed, but that we never had, this thrum of a wayward axle, this dukkha, becomes a common trope in Zen. Students often present themselves to teachers only to be asked, "Where have you come from? Where were you last? Where did you spend the summer training period?" A typical opening gambit, so often missed by those students. Here in case 15 of The Gateless Gate, we see Yunman ask Dongshan, "Where were you most recently?" Dongshan said, "At Chado." Yunman said, "Where were you during the summer?" Dongshan said, "At Baoji Monastery in Hunan." Yunman said, "When did you leave there?" Dongshan said, "August 25th. Yunman said, "I spare you 60 blows. Next day, Yongshan came again and said, "Yesterday you said you spared me 60 blows. I don't know where I was at fault." Yunman said, "You rice bag, do you go about in such a way now west of the river, now south of the lake?" With this, Dongshan had great satori. And these answers, Chado, Baoji Monastery, Oakland, Boston, Lewisburg, these are good, straightforward answers, but not the whole of the matter, not the deepest part of our own being, not that place we have never left, but may have forgotten. Just where is your true home? Where can you return without feeling sick of home? And what is that home? The great Soto teacher Kodo Sawaki never settled down as an abbot in his own temple in Japan. He's known to us to this day as homeless Kodo, one who is most often quoted for his advice to us about what's Zazen good for? Absolutely nothing. This good for nothing has got to sink into your flesh and bones until you're truly practicing what's good for nothing. Until then, your Zazen really is good for nothing. We all feel that heartache. We all do feel that heartache, that nostalgia, going home, going to that true home we have never left. Hold your hand out and grasp at the air. Turn your hand over, unclench your fist, and gaze at all you have gained, a whole lot of emptiness. Or perhaps, from another perspective, the whole of the universe, your true home. Thank you.